Hey, this is Luke Simons with Salt Strong. Today we're going to cover how to spool a spinning reel with braided line, and this video is going to have two unique things to it compared to most other videos out there. First, we're going to concentrate on just building the foundation the correct way. That way on future respools you can save time and money, and you'll see what I'm talking about at the end. And the second thing is we're going to focus on just avoiding line twists at all points possible. That way it'll significantly lessen the odds that you're going to get those pesky wind knots while out there fishing. So first, let's just cover what's needed. And here you can see it's just not much. It's just a handful of things. You need a wet rag. A very important part of this is to have tension, a steady tension throughout the entire line as you reel it in, so the wet rag will help do that. Next, we have mono. In this case, I'm using 30 pound, which is heavier than the braid I'm using, and the reason is because I like to have a heavy back end. That way I know it kind of serves as a warning track, similar to baseball, where I know if I see this mono come up at the end, if I'm fighting a big fish, if I see the mono, I know I need to take action. Either I need to just hold on to the spool or do something just to make sure that the big fish doesn't take out all of my line. And then we're going to use braid, of course. This is 10 pound Power Pro. And of course you need some scissors, just something to cut the line with. And obviously the rod and spinning reel. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first step is to get some mono, and we're going to use the mono on the spool, and the reason for that is because if you go braid, a straight braid to a bare spool like this, the braid just doesn't have enough friction, and it could end up having the entire spool of braid just floating along the surface. So if you do actually hook in a big fish, you just won't have the ability to even reel it in. So you have two options. You can either use mono and put mono at the very bottom like we're about to do, or you can actually get just some tape. Electrician's tape is what I've heard works best. Put the tape around the spool and just tie braid on top of that. But as I said before, I like to have my little warning track, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the mono, and I'll show you at least the knot I use for that, and it's called an arbor knot. And so we pull out the mono, have just a simple overhand knot, do it right away, right at the very top of it. You see that there? And then we're going to go around the spool. Of course, flip the bail open first. Make sure you do that before you do your knot. So we're going to just go around that line and just do another simple overhand knot. I'll get my hands out of the way here so you can see what I did. So again, we just made that first overhand knot, then we did a second overhand knot around the line, and we're going to pull that tight. And then we're just gonna go ahead and pull that tight, and it'll eventually cinch down onto that knot. You can see now that first knot is now getting in there, and just keep tightening. And what that's doing, that's just forming just a nice bond with the reel. I mean, now I can get a lot of pressure, and it's on there good. So that step is now done. We can now cut the tag end off. You can get as close as you need to. There you are, so that's done. Next step is to go ahead and just start spooling some of this mono on. And we're not going to do much here. We're just going to make sure that we cover just a nice layer of mono. So it doesn't have to be a ton, but just enough to at least get that nice base set. So again, anytime you're putting any line on the reel, always have some tension on the line, and just to make sure that it don't burn your fingers. Recommend just a nice simple little wet rag will do the job. So we got that on there. We have the spool ready to go, so let's just go ahead and just reel in. All right, so you can see we just have just a basic layer. Again, I don't want to have too much on there, but there's probably maybe 20 feet of line there. So that way, again, if I'm fighting a big fish and I see this mono start shooting out, it's time to make a change. I have to start applying more pressure. If it breaks off, oh well, at least it doesn't come out with all the line. But in many cases, if you just start putting more pressure on it, you'll turn the fish and start gaining line on them. So let's go ahead and I'll show you the line-to-line knot. Let's go ahead and just cut the line right here. Now that we have the base, we have the mono base set, now it's time to tie our mono to our braid. And before doing so, always go through this top eye. That's just, that'll make the loading of the braid just much easier. So what I recommend here is, again, it's called the FG knot, just a super strong knot, and best of all, it's just very, very thin, and it's been the strongest one I've tested so far. And to make it easier, I need to get some tension on this braid. So what I'm gonna do is actually, I don't really have anything here, but I'll just hold the spool in between my legs here just to get the tension. I'm gonna put the braid in my mouth, and then I'm going to thread this mono around the braid, and I'm going to do it 16 to 20 times. And again, this is just a super strong knot, and what it does, it just spreads the tension load across a large part of the line. Fantastic knot. If you're using braid and you're doing line to line, learn this knot. Here goes. So I have tension. Now I'm going to go over and just start threading. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and after every one, I pull the line tight, as you see there. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. All right, so we have that done. I can take the tension off. And now it's a matter of doing just some quick hitch knots. And all that is, that's just going around the line and then creating that loop and then pulling it through that loop. And then what that does, all that does is just lock the coils into place. So now you can actually see the coils I made. So you can see all those wraps just form these nice little coils onto the braid. And now we're going to go ahead and do another hitch knot just to finalize that. All right, so we have the 2 hitch knots. Before cutting the tag, definitely make sure to apply tension to the overall knot. So I'm going to get the line both sides in my hands without touching the tags, just the main lines, and pull tight. And you'll see the braid digging into the mono. What that's doing, that's digging grooves into the outer layer of the mono, and it will not pull off. Now that those grooves are formed, you can see that braid is just almost digging into it. It is there for good. Just again, a fantastic knot. So we'll go ahead and cut that off. Let's cut the leader. There we are, we're done. And when I'm using this closer to the reel, I'll put some more hitch knots on there. But just for the back of the reel, this will do. And you can see it's just super thin. It'll sit right there in the spool and not cause any trouble. All right, so now that we have our braid connected to our mono, and now we can start just reeling it up. And again, we went through the eye, and we're just gonna, the benefit of that is you want to have your rod tip just directly above the spool. That way it'll just shoot right up and then go straight down into the spool. So let's go ahead and let me just reel up and start getting the braid on top of inside the spool. Make sure that knot is all clear. There we are, knot is now on. So now we're going straight to braid. And be sure to take note on how this reel is spinning. You can see it's going in this direction. What we want to do is we just to make sure, again, the line twists are minimized, is we want to have the line going off the spool in the same direction. And so if we didn't loop across this reel, this spool is basically facing the reel this way. And as you can see, this line is going off in the same direction. Again, the same direction as the reel is moving. So that's how we want it. We want that side facing up. So for Power Pro, the label side facing up. And again, at this point, the biggest thing to keep in mind is we want to have constant tension on this line as you're spooling it. So again, use this rag, with the wet rag, protect your fingers from getting burned. Gonna put it in the wet rag. I hold it up, I guess as high as I can. Go over the camera. Again, you can see the water coming off it. It's almost too much water on there. And just get the rod, just put it in a steady place. Put the spool directly underneath the eye, and then start reeling. And let me get a better grip on it. There we are. I wasn't getting enough tension. There we are. Now just basically reeled on, and you can go as fast as you like. And as far as the amount of line you want on there, you basically just keep going until there's about maybe a 1/16 of an inch from the edge of the braid to the edge of the spool. The more line you put on, the farther you can cast. But if you go too far, you'll increase your odds of getting a wind knot. So just something to keep in mind. There's a pro and con to everything. So if you go too far, you might get a wind knot. But we'll just keep on cranking, and I'll show you the amount that I typically put on. All right, so that's about where I like to put it. And a nice test at the end, just to make sure that you had enough tension, is if you put your thumb on there, and if you can move it in, then it's too loose. Then you probably need to just reel it off onto a different reel and put it back on, because you need to have tension on there. If there isn't tension, as you get a fish, it'll start digging into the backing, and that'll just create problems and wind knots, and it's just not worth the hassle. So if you can move this in, when you apply pressure and it's loose, then redo it. All right, I promised you a trick on how to save money on future respools. Here it is. So right now we have our reel. We have the braid in there. We have it to the right specification. It's impossible to know exactly how much line is in there because we had the mono backing, and every spool is a little bit different. But what we can do in the future is we can know exactly how much line we respool if we walk it out. That's what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna walk out 75 yards and then tie a line-to-line knot. And then all future respools will just be at the knot. We'll just go right back to the knot and then tie on another 75 yards. And that way you can have fresh line without spending a ton of money on that fresh line, because all the stuff in the back, it really rarely gets used, if ever. So it's better just to do it the right way. We've built our base. Now what I'm about to do is I have this big field out here, so I'm gonna walk out 75 yards of line and then come back, cut it, do the line-to-line knot. And after that's done forever with this reel, I'll know that out of a 300-yard spool like this, which is pretty customary lineage on here, is that I'll get 4 respools off this one spool. And before I started doing this, I would get possibly 2. I would do at least 1, and the second one would sometimes run out of line midway through, which ends up being a complete waste. So with walking out the line, again, just do it this one time. Afterwards, every single respool will be exactly 75 yards. So this spool will give me exactly 4 respools. So let me go ahead and walk it out, and I'll show you the knot. All right, here it is. You can see that's a ton of line out there. I'll just go ahead and drop it down. And then tie the line knot and reel right back up. All right, so I just walked the line out. As you saw, it was just a long ways out there. That's plenty line for almost all fish you'll come across if you're going after snook, redfish, trout. So I'm gonna go in here and literally cut the line. And now we're gonna do the double uni knot. And with braid, you might already know this uni knot, which is a very popular knot. But with braid, I always double it up. So in a normal mono, it goes 5 twists. And for braid, I recommend 10. So we're just gonna get the 2 tag ends, just overlap them, the tags are in opposite directions. I grab it about midway down, start with the one on this side. I'm just gonna loop it around, facing towards me. And then this tag end I'm just gonna take through this loop 10 times. So there's 1, 2, and every one needs to go in the same direction. I guess in my case, right to left, and yours the opposite. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'll show you what it looks like at the end. All right, so there it is. You can see there's the tag end out there. I probably need to do more tag end next time, but it's all 10 wraps around that loop, all going in the same direction. At this point, we can just go ahead and pull on the tag end, and just get those coils down, kind of bound on top of one another. Just pull it finger tight. You see it locks down real small. And now we're going to focus on this other end. So do the exact same thing on the other end. We're going to go just pull it, wrap it around, and we're going to do all these wraps on this side of the knot. So I have the knot underneath my finger. I'm going to just grab onto the tag end with the tip of the finger, and then go through that loop 10 times. Eight, 9, and last one, 10. And again, the same as before, we have our loop, we have all those wraps going in the same exact direction away from the other knot. And then we're just gonna go ahead and pull that line down. It'll cinch on down there, nice and tight. We'll tighten it up pretty good. And so at this point, just let go of the tag ends, and pull on the main lines, and those two knots will just form. They'll hit each other and just really cinch down. And there it is. I'm pulling it tight. You can see it almost change colors. So that is just a super strong knot, and best of all, is really thin as well. So it'll go right in your spool without causing any trouble, just like that FG knot before. Go ahead and cut the tags. There you are. So we just spliced our line, and again, at future respools, you would just pull the line out until you saw this knot, and then cut it right below it, and then do it all over again. Just tie on a line-to-line knot just like this, reel down till you get to the proper setting on your spool. That'll be exactly 75 yards, and then once you have that, you'll know that you're going to get at least you'll get exactly 4 spools out of a 300-yard spool. So that's the tip. We're now done. I'm going to go ahead and reel this up before these people walk through the line out there at the park. And again, if you have any questions, just leave a comment down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. More importantly, subscribe to our website. That's where all of our best tips are. But thank you so much for watching. See you again soon.
There's something about the water that'll give you peace, all by yourself or with your family. Live salt strong and wear the line today. There's nothing better on a Saturday night than an ice cold beer and a fish fry, and talking about the big ones that got away. 'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. You'll find us on the water if there is